There's 3 mistakes that investors make, and I want to talk about these today because it's a huge topic. Hey guys, Angelo Christian with Christian Financial. Hey, listen, are you not happy with the investment returns that your investor or your advisors are getting for you? Are you not happy with the 401k returns there as a flat market, right? People aren't getting the returns. Are you worried about your risk, your downside risk? Okay, does your investment advisor know how to protect your downside risk? These are questions that you have to ask because there's 3 mistakes that investors make. And I want to talk about these today because it's a huge topic that I think that a lot of people aren't aware of. You know, we took on a client and his other investment advisor lost $100,000 for him and did not have any protection for him on the downside. All he did is go out into the market and buy stocks, right? Those stocks cratered in the recent sell-off, and now his portfolio is down over $100,000. So one of the things you always want to look at is what are the mistakes that investors are making. And today we're going to talk about 3 of them. The first one is that investors, they buy at the wrong time. Timing is everything when you invest in the market, okay? And, you know, this investment advisor was buying stocks, okay, in Netflix, you know, the FANG stocks, you know, Netflix, Amazon, when the stocks are already at all-time highs. Okay, that's a very, very risky proposition because what's the protection to the downside? And I told my client that now became my client, I said, I want you to ask the other advisor, how does he protect your downside? How is he protecting your risk? Do you know anything about options? Do you know anything about currency? Do you know anything about futures? And the advisor told him, I don't know anything about that. All we do is buy stocks. We have a long position, right? So it didn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me, guys, that if you guys, one of the most important things in your life aside from your family is your retirement, your wealth, all right? And you're going to trust Wall Street and people, these advisors, to manage your money, all right? And they're buying long positions. What happens if the market crashes? Okay, alternative investments, you see these large, massive pension funds, they've got into alternative investments because they see that's where the higher yield is, and they're protected whether the market goes up, down, or sideways. That's how we manage our fund here with Christian Financial. We're up over 25.9% this year where the market's flat, okay? If you're just invested in index funds in your 401k or your mutual funds, what's going to happen if the market goes down? You have no protection. Anyone that's intelligent, whether you're running a business, you want to have active management. So why would we leave one of the most important things in our life up to chance, so a 50-50 shot? Does that make any sense? Because when you buy something, it's a 50-50 chance if it's going to work out or not. What happens if it goes down? What happens if it stays flat? Right? So you want to make sure that whoever you invest with, that they have a very broad knowledge of all the markets. You know, real estate, futures, options, private equity, public equity, the debt markets, right? Because when somebody has that much knowledge and that's their expertise, then they're aware of all the different instruments and they're so dynamic that they can achieve alpha. That's so important for managing assets. I can't stress that enough. So, but the main things that, on top of that, the first mistake that investors make is they get in at the wrong time, and then you know, if they're buying high, if they buy when the market's high, that's not the good time to buy in the market. You want to take the opposite side of that bet. If the market's at all-time highs or stocks at all-time highs, that's a very risky proposition because what's the risk? The risk is all to the downside. If you keep buying when the market's higher, that's going to put you at huge exposure for your portfolio. Okay, so that's the first mistake that investors make. They get in at the wrong time. Okay, the second thing is they have no hedge to protect their risk. Okay, if you're buying, let's say Apple at today, it's at 100. You know, looks for example that Apple recently has cratered over $50 per share. Okay, it's at $178 today. It made all-time highs earlier in the year. If you bought Apple, let's say at $240, I mean, you're big time in the hole right now. Okay, but you know there's actually there's positions, instruments that you can use to be completely neutral. Whether Apple goes up, down, or sideways, it doesn't matter, and you can still make money. And those are strategies that we employ with Christian Financial. Okay, as opposed to just buying long Apple at $240 and then, oh my God, it went down $60. Now I'm down 100 grand or $1 million or 10 million. You could have been neutral all along the way, whether it went down, up, or sideways. And that's the key to a great investment manager, guys, is that he can make money for your portfolio regardless of what the market does. Okay? Any investment manager you talk to, you got to ask him, how are you protecting my risk? Can you make money if Apple goes down too? Or are you just going to be long this position? Because you're going to be screwed if that thing, like you saw what happened. A lot of people have lost hundreds of millions of dollars in the recent sell-off of Apple. Well, we're actually up in the year in Apple because of the strategies that we employ. So huge thing, guys. I'm telling you, I talk to people all the time, wealthy clients, doctors, lawyers, business owners, that even other fund managers, and they're not aware of these things, and they're down for the year, right? So that's the second mistake that investors make, right? They're hedged, they're not protect on their risk on their downside. The third mistake that investors make is that they use too much debt or they use too much leverage. Okay, and you have to be very, very careful whenever you're making investments into things that you don't use too much debt or leverage to be able to buy something. Okay, for example, I'll give you an example. You look at a lot of these companies that have recently filed bankruptcy because they use too much debt to be able to purchase their asset, right? Because what happens if that goes against you? You always have to contemplate the downside if something happens. Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, they always talk about that they spend more time contemplating the downside of what could go wrong and not being overly optimistic, right? That's one of the things that Alan Greenspan always said, that people are too optimistic. And as a good investment manager, you want to be more conservative and contemplate the downside and have a hedge and protection. If you take on that too much debt, and that company or that asset or that trade goes against you, how are you going to service that debt? You can have a margin call, right? You're not going to be able to service the debt, right? You saw recently what happened in natural gas. I don't know if you watched the market carefully in natural gas, that was a hedge fund that blew out. That hedge fund had a whole bunch of short options on natural gas positions, right? And then you saw that natural gas shot up, right, to over almost $5, right? And that company went out of business overnight, right? And they lost all the investors' money because they were way over leveraged. They were selling hundreds of positions on natural gas, okay? And, I mean, that is absolutely crazy that they were doing that. But they were way over leveraged, selling futures options on natural gas, and they couldn't cover the margin call. So they lost all the investor money. So be very careful, whoever you're working with, as an investment manager, investment advisor, wherever you're at, that they're not using too much debt with some of these instruments, because it will wipe you out, guys. So my name is Angelo Christian with Christian Financial. I manage a hedge fund here for me and my clients. I've been doing this for over 15 years. I'd love to talk to you and look at the opportunity, look at your fund, and see if there's any way we can boost alpha for you to get you higher returns for you and your family. Reach out to me at 832-431-6331 or message me at angelo@chihomeloans.com. Thank you so much. Take care and peace out. Bye-bye.